My uncle unfortunately passed away earlier this month. He was a retired cop and used to transcribe interrogation tapes for the Dayton, Ohio Police Department. I found this one in an old desk drawer and had to share it. Warning, though, as this is the confession of a convicted serial killer, it contains graphic descriptions of murder. Well, let's just get this started, I suppose. Detective Denbrock, will you please pull up a chair for Mr. Foster here? Sure. Thank you. It's Tuesday, January 6th, 2006. Approximately 4:32 p.m., I'm interviewing a Mr. Lewis Foster. Mr. Foster, do you have any questions before we begin? No, sir. Very well. You're claiming you have information regarding the whereabouts of several missing persons. We're talking cases dating back to... No. I'm telling you, I know where these women are. I killed them. I'm turning myself in. Look, Mr. Foster, you aren't the first person that's come in here wanting to take credit for the North Dayton kidnappings. We get lunatics in here every day just hoping to get their faces on the news, get their 5 minutes of fame. Now, I've been up here for 3 days, and I don't have much patience for this. We have a squad car dispatched at the address you gave us. If you're full of shit, they're going to radio me and this interview is over. You understand? They won't find anything until I want them to. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not a freaking idiot, detective. I didn't just haphazardly leave bodies lying around the house. I'm not some kind of amateur. I want to explain myself first. I tell my story. You get your bodies. Great. Another crazy one. Should we just call it Sawyer? Mr. Foster, unless you can give us pertinent information, tell them to check the back of the closet upstairs in the master bedroom. There's a loose board. Once they take that out, the whole back slides open. Riley, this is Sawyer. Come in, over.
Yes, sir. This is Riley. We're just now entering the residence, over.
Riley, I want you and your boys to check the closet in the master bedroom upstairs. Mr. Foster says there's a panel in the back that slides open, over.
Copy. Making our way there now, sir. Over.
Good. Now that we have a rapport, gentlemen, I would really love to tell you, too, my story. Let me remind you that you are on our time right now, Mr. Foster. Let's see what the officers find in that closet of yours before we waste everyone's time. With all due respect, officer, I think you're going to want to hear what I have to tell you.
Holy freaking hell! We have an officer down over here. Sawyer, we need a medic here stat and send some more units!
Riley, what the hell is going on over there?
It's a mess! Peterson tried to open the closet, and there was some kind of trap. It sent shrapnel right into his throat. He's gonna freaking bleed out if we don't get him out of here now!
Denbrock, talk to dispatch. I want units and a medical team out there immediately. Yes, sir. I told you. You son of a bitch. What have you done? This is Detective Sean Denbrock, taking over interrogation duties for Detective Sawyer. I'm currently questioning a Mr. Lewis Foster about the disappearance of 4 women from Dayton, Ohio, dating back to 1995, as well as the murder of Officer Alex Patterson of Dayton's 23rd Precinct. The current time is 6:15 p.m. Mr. Foster, I'm sorry. Excuse me? I said I'm sorry for your friend. I could tell that your colleague, Detective Sawyer, I could tell that they were close. I could see the pain in his eyes when it happened. I didn't intend to hurt any of your men. If you had simply let me speak... That's quite enough, Mr. Foster. We found the suits in the back of the closet. Why don't we start there? Very well. Did your men inspect them? The suits? Yes, our lead investigator seems to believe they're made out of human skin. They belong to the victims. Yes. And their bodies. Oh, what did you do with them? Where are they? Mannequins. Mannequins? I've always felt like one my whole life. You walk past them in department stores, see them on display, but never really give them a second thought. Dressed like us, like humans, but hollow inside. You can pose them in any familiar gesture you'd like, but that doesn't make them seem any less devoid of life. They call it the uncanny valley. When you get so close to appearing human that you cross a line and end up seeming more alien than ever. I was raised out on a farm by my father. My mother died giving birth to me. My father always blamed me for her death. He used to tell me I was nothing. To him, I was useless, only good for standing there like an idiot. He would beat me until I couldn't move, and then berate me for being too weak to work the farm. That's a very touching story, Mr. Foster, but what does that have to do with the missing woman? I wasn't useless, Detective. I was just smart, you see. I let my father believe I was weak, that I was good for nothing. My father was a strong mountain of a man. It made it easier to get the jump on him. He couldn't raise a hand at me ever again if all he had left was a stump. So in addition to the 4 women and Officer Pedersen, you're admitting to the murder of your father. Is that right? I started by cutting off his hands, and then his feet, and finally his penis. I cut off every appendage he had ever found a way to hurt me with. I used a branding iron to cauterize the wounds and stop the bleeding. When I was done, and he regained consciousness, I stabbed him in the neck. I'll never forget that look of hate in his eyes, how it slowly shifted to pure fear as he began to choke on his own blood. It's never quick like it is in the movies. There's more wheezing, gurgling. You can hear how the blade has shredded their vocal cords. And when they do finally give in, watching the light leave their eyes, you never forget that. Oh, jeez. Wow. So is this something we can verify? Can you tell us where his body is? You may be able to find some bits of bone in the field out at the old farmhouse, and it's in Cleveland. I'll give you the address once we're done here. And where do the missing women come into play here? Once I had disposed of my father, eviscerated his body and used the shreds to help fertilize our fields, I made my way out to Cincinnati. That's where I met a Miss Molly Sheffield. Excuse me one moment. Harry, I need anything you can find on a Mo. Cincinnati. Sorry about that. I'm having someone check our records for... You won't find any missing persons reports on Miss Sheffield. Just a death certificate. No, I didn't do it. The old bitch had a stroke. You might find some arrest records, though. She was a prostitute. Worked at a strip club called Rough Riders in downtown Cincinnati. I was a frequent patron there. I'm familiar with the place. I'm not sure I understand, though. None of the missing women were strippers. No, it was never the strippers that caught my attention. Well, Miss Sheffield being the exception. I had never met someone else hollow like me before. Not until her. You felt a connection. So then what? Did you start stalking her? Not stalking, Detective. Observing. Like you said, we had a connection. I found out when she wasn't at the strip club. She was prostituting herself. It was the Johns that caught my attention, Detective. Not all of them, but a select few. The married ones. You see, as someone that's never been able to connect with other people, I've always been deeply envious of those that could. Why should my life lack love and beauty? And why should those married men be taking their love for granted? Exactly, Detective. So you started following them. Yes, the guiltiest ones. You could tell how ashamed they were just from the looks on their faces as they pulled up in their cars. A few felt so awful that they'd even take off their wedding rings before rolling down their windows, calling out to Miss Sheffield. Those are the ones I selected. If those men knew in their hearts what they were doing was so shameful they couldn't even bear to look at their rings, the embodiment of their commitment to love, and yet still invite Miss Sheffield into their cars. They needed to understand that what they had could be so easily taken from them. So that brings us to Shelley Lawrence, missing woman number 1. Yes, she was the first, and the most beautiful of the bunch. She was unemployed and spent her spare time volunteering at the local soup kitchen. She was so warm and caring. When she wasn't working, she was taking care of the house, cleaning, cooking, dotting on her lying, cheating bastard of a husband. Oh, so envious. All that light she carried with her. I wanted that, even if just for a moment. We found signs of a struggle at her house, same with all the other victims. How did you do it? Once I learned their husbands' schedules, I would wait until they left and I'd sneak in. The most guilty ones, they always spent the most time away from the house. There was the waiting and mulling over their decision a few blocks from Miss Sheffield. Then the inevitable picking up. Driving to the motel, the sex was always brief. Then the longest part, the sitting with the shame and regret. The covering up of lingering cheap perfume with disgusting amounts of cologne. And then the prolonged drive back. I had hours. I would use a sedative to knock them out, a syringe to the neck, and then the message on the wall. Look at what you've lost. Yes, written in their favorite lipstick, and then I'd take them back to my store. Store? Yes, I own a small second-hand clothing store on 3rd and Leslie. That's where I would take the women. And then what? And then I would begin the process. Your ritual. Yes, I suppose it was my ritual. The sedative I'd administered was a large enough dose that the woman wouldn't wake up until after they would just never wake up. I didn't want them to suffer. How humane of you. I thought so. I would place them face down on a silver table I keep in the back of the store, and then I would use a surgical scalpel to slice them open from the base of their scalp to the bottom of their, bottom, I guess. And then I began the skinning process. It was always such a mess. The first time I didn't think to lay any plastic sheeting down. You wouldn't believe how long it took me to scrub out all that blood. Days, detective. Days. That must have been really awful for you. It was a mishap, for sure. I grew up on a farm, so the skinning itself was always smooth, though. Well, almost always. Almost? Yes, Allison Page. I don't know what happened. I must have under or overestimated her weight, screwed up the dosage. What happened? She woke just as I was starting to peel her skin back, and she started screaming. She was in a great deal of pain, as you can imagine. I tried to put her out of it as quickly as I could by severing her spine, but the scalpel wasn't strong enough to cut through her vertebrae, and it got stuck in the bone. She managed to scramble off the table, but the effects of the sedative hadn't entirely worn off yet. She limped for a moment, and then stumbled into some shelves and collapsed. She was screaming and crying, something awful. There was blood pouring from her back, pooling up all over the plastic sheeting. I panicked, grabbed a pair of scissors from the shelving, and stabbed her in the throat. She started gurgling and wheezing and trying to grab at the wound. It was awful and slow. I sat with her and held her hand until she finally bled out. After that, I knew she had to be the last one. Things were getting too far out of hand. That's why I decided to turn myself in, Detective. Allison. I don't seem to have an Allison Page in these files here. That's because I killed her 3 days ago. Her husband's been out of town for a week. But the investigators only found 4 suits in your house. Jeez. As you can see, I'm still wearing her. Haven't you ever wanted to know what it was like to walk around in someone else's skin? To take in all the love and light they must? Put your freaking shirt down now. I don't want to look at that. Frig. As you wish. Enough of this. I'm done entertaining you, you sick freak. Tell me where their bodies are. I already told you, Detective. Mannequins. I run a clothing store. I keep them in the window for the world to see. Liquefied and encased in plastic. We switch places. Don't you see? Did you guys hear that? What the frig are you waiting for? Secondhand clothing store on 3rd and Leslie. Get units out there now, and you're going to be put to death, Foster. I'm going to make sure of it, you soulless piece of crap. I swear it. Someone get this guy out of here for frig's sake. Get that poor girl's skin off his body. Wait. I lied about something, Detective. Hold on, guys. What? What are you saying? I lied. That girl, the last girl I killed. What did you lie about? Her name, it wasn't Allison Page. It was Alexandra Dembrock. It was your wife, Detective. What are you talking about? I told you, Detective. Miss Sheffield died. She had a stroke. I had to find someone else to observe. You've been seeing Callie once a week for a while now. Callie. She's hollow. Just like me. Callie, I don't How long has it been since you were home, Detective? 3 days? Right? You're a poor sweet wife all alone. Well, except for when she visits her sister in Cleveland. Right? You're lying. You're lying. Screw you. Detective Dembrock.